I'm Dr. Carrie Horn, and you are listening to an excerpt from my book, A Soul Aligned: How God Heals His Creations. In this video, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from A Soul Aligned entitled Children Are Vulnerable. And so this is an excerpt, I'm going to read to you, and then at the end, you're going to be writing. So I encourage you to grab your journal and a pen because you're going to take a moment to write. In previous videos, I gave you questions and food for thought on things to write on. But it's really important that you're not depending on me, but that you are living by the Holy Spirit and receiving His ministry on where He's calling you to shepherd your inner child or to self-examine. So I'm going to give you, maybe a little bit of direction, but you need to be pulling up those questions within yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, I'd encourage you to listen to prior videos in which I do provide the questions. That way you have that sort of model. Essentially, you keep in mind of what you're doing. So you are taking stock, you're engaging in personal accountability, you're looking at your sin. You're also healing from any wounds that are coming up from this reading. Because sometimes we hear how children were supposed to be treated, and that was far from the way that we were treated, and that hurts, and it brings up anger, it brings up pain and grief, and so you need to process that grief. You need to be able to process that in order to heal, and in order to also evaluate how that has affected your life and what sin that might have led to in your own life. It's not all about sin, but when we are left unresolved, it does lead us to sin. So I know that may sound a little harsh, but for example, if we were raised in an abusive environment, as I was, we are going to end up feeling fear. And as children in that type of environment, we didn't have a way of seeking our own safety in God and knowing how to do that. We relied on the adults around us. And so that fear, the feeling of fear is intended to get us to return to God. But when we don't return to God, and this doesn't necessarily mean, for a child, if they don't know how to do that, they don't know how to do that. Nevertheless, if we don't return to God over time, we end up being inhabited by a spirit of fear that causes us things like the world refers to as anxiety or PTSD or things like that. But God does not refer to anxiety or PTSD. God refers to a spirit of fear. So that's what we need to refer to it as in order to understand what is actually going on inside of us and how to be healed of it for good, not in 20 years of therapy or 20 years on, psych meds or whatever else, but to be healed of it for good. We have to return to our Creator and what He has taught us about our design. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get into the reading. Children are vulnerable and impressionable. Just as Eve was deceived by the serpent, children are vulnerable to deception and enticement. God disciplines those He loves. Hebrews 12:6. Because discipline is the way that He allows us to enjoy our freedom within the confines of His view and protection and our call to holiness. For you were called to freedom, brothers, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. Galatians 5:13. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. 1 Peter 2:16. As we reflect on the history of the Israelites, God blessed them and made a covenant with their father Abraham to care for them and give them their inheritance. However, when they were left to their own devices, they deferred to idols and evil. Thus, God gave them laws and statutes by which to remain disciplined and safe. Discipline preserves our purity. Jesus knows our weaknesses because He experienced life in the flesh. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every aspect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Hebrews 4:15. His laws and discipline are intended to teach us who we are and how to preserve who we are in Him so that He does not lose us. Whoever spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Proverbs 13:24. God created us for his good pleasure, just as a couple has children for their good pleasure and delight. Discipline your son, and he will give you the rest. He will give you rest. He will give delight to your heart. Proverbs 29:17. A fool despises his father's instructions, but whoever heeds reproof is prudent. Proverbs 15:5. We must understand that God's laws and discipline are intended for us, not against us. His plans for us are good. Jeremiah 29:11. Take a moment to journal your own questions. Bring resolution to any unresolved suffering with which God has put you in touch. Engage in inner parent and inner child dialogue, and then bring yourself to God as his child. If you have enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for more videos like this. I've provided some resources for you in the description box, a couple of links, one to this book, A Soul Aligned, one to the Heart Known series, which is the workbook that's used in conjunction with A Soul Aligned. And also my email address. I've disabled the comments and the likes simply because it's not important to your healing and it's not important to my to the ministry that God has built in me. But I would like to make myself available in case anyone has questions or wants to participate in a workshop. And that'll be in the description box. Thanks so much for listening. God bless you. Oh, next video is Children Are Humble in Heart.